Welcome to Sideline Sanity, everyone, with me, Michele Tafoya, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There really has never been a better time to start looking at precious metals and make that investment. Go to legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. Today is February 16th, 2023, and you may have heard that Nikki Haley, the former ambassador to the UN, the former governor of the state of South Carolina, has thrown her hat into the presidential ring. And when she's been talking in the last 24 hours, she mentioned that she thinks there ought to be term limits. And she thinks that politicians who are, quote unquote, past their prime need to, maybe leave office. It's not a new thought, but she used the phrase past their prime. So what she suggested was that, a cognitive ability test be administered. And I think we can certainly agree. Everyone wanted that for Donald Trump. Everyone wanted Trump to take a cognitive ability. Everyone was very curious about his mental health. Are we curious about the health of people in other parties, other political parties? Because I haven't heard a call for that until Nikki Haley made this statement about people being past their prime. Well, it gets really interesting. Some of you may be familiar with Don Lemon. No, it is not Don Lemon. That's sort of a make fun name that people use. Don Lemon, anchor at CNN, was in primetime, now is in the morning show, and has been in the news for a number of reasons lately, but continues to keep his job there in spite of that. What he said this morning about Nikki Haley, I didn't believe at first. I read it and I said, no. And it wasn't really just about Nikki Haley. It was about women, of which I am one. I was blown away. If you haven't heard it, stay with us because I think you'll be blown away too. That's next.
For nearly 3 decades, she's reported the action from the sidelines. She started very young. She's covered the NBA, NFL, Olympics, and the college football and basketball national championships. And now, during these insane times in our world, Michele Tafoya thinks we need a serious dose of sanity. This is Sideline Sanity with your host, one of the sanest people on planet Earth, Michele Tafoya.
Well, let me read to you from this article in Mediaite that talked about Don Lemon's unbelievable statements this morning. He said, Mediaite writes, things got a little awkward on the set of CNN this morning after Don Lemon curiously suggested that Nikki Haley shouldn't bash politicians' ages because she's past her, quote, prime as a woman. The conversation today focused on Haley's presidential campaign launch, specifically the part of her speech where she called for mental competency tests for politicians aged 75 and up. As Caitlin Collins noted, the dig at both Donald Trump and President Joe Biden, Lemon led the discussion astray by wondering if Haley is anyone to judge politicians for being older. And with this, let's just play it for you. Let's hear my producer, John Berger, is going to roll the sound for us. Roll tape, John.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that, politicians aren't in their prime.
You need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
What the facts are. Google it. Everybody at home. When is a woman in her prime? It says 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I'm just saying Nikki Haley should be careful about saying that politicians are not in their prime and they need to be in their prime when they serve, because she wouldn't be in her prime according to Google or whatever it is. Look, and you have to be careful because older people vote. Older people watch linear television. right? And so she has to be careful about turning off a certain constituency who may be her strongest set of supporters by
more
saying
old people vote than younger people.
Yes,
but I will
that's
say,
the point.
Age is a fair question. Remember we talked
All right,
about how young
stop
people
right there, John, and re-rack it because we're going to go pick this apart. It is remarkable in its stupidity. It is remarkable in its condescension. It is remarkable in its sexism. It is remarkable in so many ways. All right. First of all, I don't even care how old Don Lemon is because I don't really care how old people are. I don't. Although I do care about when your age impacts your abilities. I adore my 91-year-old mom. I do. But even she would tell you, I shouldn't be president. No, there are a lot of things mom shouldn't be doing anymore, like driving, and so she doesn't. So age, if you follow the science, can impact your cognitive abilities, your physical abilities, all of those things. Okay, so we're going to rack this from the start and deconstruct this a little bit. John, why don't you run it again from the beginning of Don Lemon, who says the whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. Go ahead.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry.
Okay, stop right there. It's the wrong road to go down, but he takes the road. He goes there anyway. And he says, this talk about age makes me uncomfortable. Okay, go ahead and resume, John.
Politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait,
stop right there.
According to me.
Prime for what?
And then he says, according to Google. All right. As I'm sitting here, folks, I'm going to do this. I am going to go to Google. When is a woman in her prime? I'm typing it in as we speak. All right, let's see what I get here. First of all, most of the responses right now, or the hits that I get, are all on Don Lemon. So Quora says, I'd say a woman is at a prime age starting at 19, earlier than that, and she's a child. Other times she's at a prime age. Oh, and then it lists prime numbers. That's very cute. Honestly, I typed in when is a woman in her prime, and 99% of the responses I get here are all about Don Lemon. John, when
he's creating his own news with this. He's creating his own news.
Of course.
Now I see what he's doing here. Now I see what he's doing. That's not. That's actually pretty smart. I mean, the obvious question here, the thing that goes unstated that he won't answer is he talking about physical prime, like the prime of their attractiveness, or is he talking about the prime of them as a woman, which a woman at her core is so much more than her attractiveness. And
thank you.
I think you probably can guess where I think you could probably guess where I stand, but it's funny how he tiptoes up to the line, says it, drops this bomb on two female co-hosts who he's been in the press as abusing the last few weeks, verbally abusing.
Yeah.
And he drops this on him. And then his only defense is to say, well, Google it. Well, Don, I mean, isn't that why people tune in? So they can just Google their news.
Don't trust me. Google it. So yes, and he is defending what it means to be in their prime. And again, women are fertile up until their late 30s. And take it from me, I had many challenges. But prime for what? Yeah, if it's that she's hot, if it's that she's fertile, if it's that she's sexually active. I mean, this is like unbelievable. He went to Google to determine when a woman is in her prime. All right. So again, he says, I'm uncomfortable with this topic. I don't really want to go down this road, but damn it, let's go down this road. And I'm going to tell you when women are in their prime. All right. Let's play the next segment, John. Give us a little more of this.
To me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, it'll say, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that.
Okay,
so I
stop
think she has to.
So first of all, he says, I'm not saying I agree with that. They asked him in their prime for what?
He just said she's not in her prime, too. He just said, Nikki Haley. He goes, sorry, she's not in her prime. He wasn't sorry. Kind of threw that at her like a rock.
Right.
And then he also says, well, it depends. And then he gives an actual, 20s, 30s, and 40s. Well, does it depend or does it not depend?
Right. Depends on what they say what in her prime for what. Well, it depends. But it's not me saying this. It's a fact. Check Google. It's a fact. Check Google. Okay. Google doesn't always bring you the facts, folks. And the question in their prime for what is certainly important. First of all, we got to understand. Don Lemon never would say this about a Democrat. So he wouldn't say it about Hillary Clinton, wouldn't say it about Dianne Feinstein, wouldn't say it about Nancy Pelosi, wouldn't say it about anyone. But this is the road he's going down with Nikki Haley. Now, if Don Lemon wanted to create news, as he's done, he's achieved that. But damn it, does he look dumb? At a certain point today, I was like, maybe he really wants to get fired. Maybe he's trying to get fired so he can get like a severance package and move on with his life, because things are not going well for Don Lemon over at CNN. John Berg, my producer, just mentioned the verbal abuse to a co-host, and now telling women when they're in their prime based on a Google search. It's a fact, he says. Check Google. All right. Everything you see on Google is fact-based, folks. I learned that today, too. Quick break. And just to tell you this, before you're out of your prime, you really should invest in precious metals. Do it quickly while you're still in your prime. Oh, my goodness gracious. Okay. On a serious note, what's your money doing for you? Where is it? Is it in the stock market, which is extremely volatile? Do you have it in a savings account? Do you have it under your mattress? Let me respectfully recommend thinking about investing in gold and silver. And if you're going to do that, go to the folks that I would shop with and do shop with. And that's Legacy Precious Metals. They're the only folks that I trust when investing in gold and silver. And I think you ought to feel very good about talking to them as well. You can talk to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals. Get a pencil. I'm going to give you the number in a minute. And you want to do this soon. Remember 2008? Well, folks who invested in gold saw significant gains. Others lost their retirements. So I know which side of that you want to be on. Gold is a hedge against inflation, which is still really high, and it protects against the weakening dollar, which is happening every day. Protect your money in gold and silver. Speak to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals, 866-528-1903. 866-528-1903. You can also download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. Do it while you're still in your prime. This is going to be a talking point, this stuff about being in one's prime forevermore. Thank you, Don Lemon. Okay, so we're talking about the fact that he says, I'm uncomfortable talking about age. Well, no, you're not, because you're doing it. For people who may not know, Don Lemon is gay. He's African American. So maybe he gets a pass about talking about things that if a straight white male said this on the air, would there be hell to pay? I mean, John, do you think that I'm correct in saying that?
I am reminded of Mitt Romney's binder full of women comment. You remember that, right?
Yes,
2012. I mean, They just dragged the guy through the mud like he was just the worst person on earth for showing a genuine interest in vetting female candidates for cabinet positions.
Yeah.
So the same people, the fact they aren't wringing their hands, the fact Don Lemon's still on the air, it doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't go much towards consistency. This is obviously one-sided, a one-sided critique.
Yep, absolutely.
Don wouldn't say that about it, and it makes me wonder if Don actually knows many women. When he tells you have to Google it to find out when a woman's in her prime. I don't really have to do that. I know lots of women. I know plenty of them, and the idea that they're only in their prime when they're in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Like we said earlier, it just misses the essence of the woman. He's clearly, Margaret Thatcher. Think of it.
Oh my gosh.
You could think of a number of Democrats.
Yes.
Pelosi is just wrapping up as the Speaker of the House. She just wrapped that up. Would you call the 70s her prime? I don't think I would, probably, at least not professionally. Who else? Eleanor Roosevelt. Look at the woman's career.
Great
post
example.
Post presidency. Eleanor Roosevelt would be a great way to. Apparently Don, though, he's He's thinking of TNA. That's all.
Yeah, well, which is shocking also. But it's again, I couldn't believe that this was real. Like I said, no, this didn't happen. But yes, it did. All right, so we're going to continue playing another snippet of this tape because if you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, 40s. And then he says, I'm not saying I agree with that. He's saying, I'm not saying I agree with that, but Nikki Haley's no longer in her prime. So he doesn't agree with what Google says, but he's willing to throw it at Nikki Haley. Oh, my goodness. Okay, play some more, John.
To be careful about saying that, politicians aren't in their prime.
You need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about?
Didn't you just say she needs to be careful for doing what he just did?
Absolutely.
Continue.
Keep rolling.
Be careful about saying that, politicians aren't in their prime.
You need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying what Google told me to say. I'm just saying what I read in Google. Just finding a way to hammer Nikki Haley because my politics don't align with hers. And by the way, Nikki Haley said politicians in their prime. She did not specify male or female. He went down that road. She said politicians, and she called for a cognitive test after the age of 75. He went down the road of when is a woman in her prime? So in other words, maybe you know what? Let me Google something. I'm going to Google when is a man in his prime. Hang on. And I'm going to Google, the same source that he went to so that we know that we're comparing apples to apples here. Because he didn't talk about when a male is in his prime. He did not do that. So I'm going to look it up because Don Lemon may not be in his prime. When is a man in his prime? Okay, here we go. Drum roll, please. At what age are men considered to be in their prime? Physically, early to mid 20s. Intellectually and emotionally, men start to fully mature about age 40. And if you take good care of yourself, physical abilities can remain intact far longer than many suppose. Oh my gosh. So again, I think, and now here's another one, Manscaped. The 60s is the prime age for men because work is on its way out and happy, peaceful retirement is on its way in. Okay, this is according to Google. I'm just what Google said. It's a fact. Google said it. So that term prime, Nikki's got to be careful. But you don't, Don. You're a journalist. You're an anchor. You're a news anchor. And you're calling a woman past her prime because of something you found on Google. Lord Almighty, have we fallen in this country. All right, let's keep playing.
When is a woman in her prime? It says 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I'm just saying Nikki Haley should be careful about saying that politicians are not in their prime and they need to be in their prime when they serve because she wouldn't be in her prime according to Google or whatever it is. Look, and you have to be careful because older people vote.
Okay, stop
older
right there.
That is not insight.
No, that's not insight. We have to be careful because older people vote. Yeah, my mom votes. She's 91. She knows that she's not capable of being a politician or running the country or running a city, let alone running her house at this point. She knows that. She cognitively gets that. But that doesn't mean she's not going to vote for Nikki Haley because Nikki Haley said people over 75 should get a cognitive test. John, this is insane.
He assumes such a fickle, shallow voter. I mean, he just presumes that, like I'm going to see an old person and they're old. So I'm going to, that just is not, especially not old people. That's what he's missing here in this whole thing. Women and men as they age. Yes. They're, maybe a woman, for magazine covers or whatever. Yeah. You're going to find 20 and 30-year-olds that isn't everything. That's not everything with men either. Their physical appearance. The wisdom you gain. I mean,
amen.
Nikki Haley's 51. Nikki Haley is 51. I think there's an argument to be made that she is literally entering her prime right now. And it really depends how you define prime. So I happen to go to Google.
How do you define prime?
I went to Google, the authority on everything. Of first importance, Maine, of the best possible quality, excellent. Nikki Haley, just by throwing her hat in here, is telling everybody she's entering her prime. She is taking a step up. I don't know if anybody paid close attention during her tenure as the ambassador to the UN. I thought she did an outstanding job, stayed above the fray, represented the United States values, and had a spine. That's the thing that stuck out with Nikki Haley.
She
had a freaking spine, which is more than we can say for Don Lemon.
No, you get a spine more when you're in your prime. As someone who is well into my 50s, I can say that I feel wiser than I ever did in my 20s. I might have been, better looking, and I might have been more fertile. If that's how Don Lemon is going to say I'm in my prime, I was hell no ready for public office. In my 30s, gaining some wisdom. 40s, really starting to launch. Now, everyone's different. That's the other part of this. It does not allow for individuality. Right, Jersey? See, he's ticked off this morning. He is so sick of Don Lemon. And the bark collar isn't working. So there's another aspect to that. All right, he's implicating to me that I need to wrap this up, and I will. Don Lemon once said, and I was driving in my car and I heard this. It was after Richard Sherman did an interview with a reporter that really the reporter bristled at. And Don Lemon criticized the sports reporter, who I won't name, and said, you know who would have handled this better? Michele Tafoya. She is my favorite sports reporter. Don Lemon said this. This was years ago. And I'm driving in my car listening to CNN on Sirius XM or whatever, and I hear him say this, and I go, wow, gosh, that's so flattering. Don, that was flattering. Anyone who calls me their favorite, I don't think I am anymore. That I can pretty much count on, and I'm no longer in my prime, so, that makes me irrelevant at this point. But now it's just, honestly, I feel as though Don Lemon might be trying to get fired because of everything that's going on. And this is a massive embarrassment. I mean, I can't even believe this conversation happened on national television, although not many people watch CNN in the morning. But this is getting them news. This is getting them news. I wonder when he's going to do his mea culpa tour. I wonder who he's going to do his interview with first that says, I didn't mean to, categorize women. He never spoke about when men are in their prime and what men should or shouldn't be running for office based on that. This is so wrongheaded and stupid on so many levels. I almost can't believe we're talking about it, but I've got to call it out, John.
Well, Don Lemon is the one who's always crowing about how concerned he is about, our democracy. If Don Lemon, if you took him at his word, thinks Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are existential threats to our American, our democratic republic, you would think he would welcome somebody like Nikki Haley. I don't care what your opinion of Nikki Haley is. We can all agree she would be more mainstream. She would be more of a return to norm. She's not a radical person. And you would think a more moderate force entering the fray here when you have Trump and DeSantis sparring over this, you'd think he would welcome that. It sort of undercuts his great concern he has for our democracy, where someone, I think everybody can go, I think everybody can say, Nikki Haley's not a radical. You might disagree with her, but I don't think Nikki Haley is a radical. I don't think she wants to upend every norm we have in this country. I think everybody can agree on that. You would think if Don and CNN was so concerned about the peril we find ourselves in with DeSantis and with Trump, they would welcome and talk up somebody like Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is the kind of person where if the left was smart, if the Democrats were smart, they would think, how can we find positive ways to work with somebody like this and actually do something productive?
No. There's always got to be a cudgel, dude. And he found the cudgel, and it's the word prime.
Maybe I'm naive.
Keep dreaming. Right. I mean, it's disgusting how anyone from either side, and I will point at both sides for this, will find ways to drive wedges between the two sides, and thus driving a wedge in this country. And Don Lemon doesn't care. He's not afraid for the future of democracy, not as long as there are Democrats in the White House. He thinks all Republicans are bad and evil, and that's what he thinks. And that's what a lot of Democrats think. And that's really unfortunate. But let's not forget that Nikki Haley oversaw the removal of the Confederate flag over the capital of South Carolina. She does have a spine. She doesn't take crap. I'm not sure she's going to be president of the United States, but this was one of the most absurd, stupid moves I've ever seen. And if you go after her because she's called Nikki, and as Sonny Hostin did, and Sonny said, well, that's because people aren't educated enough to say my full name. I know your full name. It's Asuncion. I can say it. I've said TJ Hushmanzada. I've said lots of complicated names, Sonny, and I can say Asuncion. So I think a lot of people could probably say Asuncion. We're not stupid. And we're not stupid enough to fall for this notion that Nikki Haley is reverting to a quote-unquote Americanized name to be more mainstream. Oh, Lord. Some days, folks, I wake up and I say, really? Am I still asleep? Am I having a nightmare? Because I feel like Alice in Wonderland. Ugh. Don't forget to subscribe to Sideline Sanity wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, review, do all the things that people ask you to do when they want you to go to their podcast. I'd love it if you would. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Don't forget to be brave, man and woman, in or out of your prime, and do good. Thanks for listening.